New York City policy. That's working with city agencies and city council members on everything that's going on, environmental, climate, justice. And Frank?
Yes, thank you, LJ, and thank you, Bailey, for coordinating and facilitating. My name is Frank Joseph, everyone. I'm the Chief of Staff here at We Act. Fairly new, a couple months in, so a little wet behind the ears and then learning. So I'm in here with you all, really. And with that, I'll pass it on. I said Mary Lady is here, so I'll pass it to you.
Hello, my name is Mary Lady. I am the climate justice intern at We Act. This is my second intern. Thanks God. So I'm here learning.
Thank you so much. So to open us up, I'm going to start us off with a song, everybody. And this is the song that I use to get me started, not only in the work, but just gets me started with the day. So I'm only going to play a snippet and then we'll just get right into everything.
Wait, are you playing it?
It's not playing through?
You got to share your screen. You got to share your sound. Share your screen and share your sound.
Okay.
So you hit play. Bailey is apparently jamming out to this song that no one else can hear.
So Bailey, I just wanted, yes, it didn't play.
We never got a chance to hear it. But
Forget it.
We felt your vibes while you were doing it though.
All right, I'm tech incompetent, so we'll forget it. I've just been told I have another colleague on. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself before we get started?
Sure, yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Ogle. I'm the comms and design manager at We Act. And yeah, also very new, only been here for about a month. So I'm learning about the organization along with y'all.
Thank you so much. So our agenda is going to be straightforward and I guess to you. We're going to talk about the history of We Act, how we do our work, why we do our work, and some of the things we're working on now, and how you, all the people on this call, can get involved. Now, if you are a member, great. When I say member, I mean dues paying member. You gave $25. If you are not, it's no problem. We just asked. We're trying to build power here in Northern Manhattan, and that is our caption area. Northern Manhattan consists of East Harlem, West Harlem, Central Harlem, and Washington Heights inwards. That is our caption area. We do have a DC office, and the DC office works on our federal policy. LJ, can you bring up the slide deck? So you are attending our We Act new member orientation. Just for clarification, if you are interested in any of the links in it, I'm already going to send everyone who is attending an email with all the links. So you don't have to worry about links and following up. I will make sure that you get that. I will also put my contact information in the chat so anybody wants to be able to reach out to me. Next slide. So some of you have already done this, put your name in the chat, but here's what I want us to do, and I don't want anybody to do it just yet. I want you to think about what are you going to do for yourself this weekend? And on the count of 4, not 3, we're going to put that in the chat. So the question is to everybody on this call, what are you doing for yourself this weekend? And on the count of 4, we're going to put that in the chat, all right? So everybody understands what we're doing? On the count of 4, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Put it in the chat. Woo! And this is what we call a waterfall, everyone. This is a waterfall, so whatever you're doing, you're going to the beach, you're with dinner with friends, movies, partying. I'm sleeping. I'm just kind of, you know, tired. So I'll be doing a little sleeping over the weekend. So just thank you for that. Thank you for all again attending. LJ, next slide. Little housekeeping rules. If you're not speaking, please mute yourself. If you want to be on video, fine. If you don't, there's no problem with that. We just ask that we want to minimize the interference in the background. Next slide. If you're calling in, if you're dialing in, I should say, it's *6 to mute and unmute yourself. Next slide. Environmental justice. We hear this term, and no matter where you've been in the world or around the country, you know, we want to make sure we're going to ground ourselves in, and this is the definition that We Act uses. Environmental justice is the fair and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with the respect of the development of implementation, enforcement, environmental laws, regulations, and policies. You're going to hear that theme, development, implementation, enforcement, throughout this presentation, because that is how we do our work. We want to make sure that communities are protected from waste, from pollution, and making sure that they lead healthy lives. Next slide. Another definition we want to make sure that we ground ourselves in is environmental racism. You hear the word a lot, racism, but as it pertains to environment, environmental racism is defined as the disproportionate impact of environmental hazards on people. Environmental justice is the movement against environmental racism, one focused on minimizing environmental impacts on all people and advocating for fair environmental policies and lawmaking and installing greater protection for BIPOC. If you're not familiar with that term, BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color. Next slide. We Act. Who's We Act? How did we get started? We Act got started in 1988, and we work to build healthy communities by ensuring that people of color and or low income participate meaningfully in the sound creation of fair and environmental protection policies and practices. We are Northern based. If you've joined us just recently, our base is Northern Manhattan, which consists of East, Central, and West Harlem, Washington Heights, and Inwood. We mobilize people of color and or low income. We work on environmental and climate justice. We participate in community-based participatory research. So that's community members like yourself working with us, doing the research on the ground and making sure that we are going to be advocating for sound. And in the next bullet, you see sound planning and practices. And the last one, let me just move my thing off. And we work on the city and state levels here at our New York office, which is 1854 Amsterdam. It's Amsterdam and 152nd. And we have a DC office working on federal policy. Next slide. The beginning, how we started. In 1988, the Sewage 7, who was led by our director and co-founder, Peggy Shepard, shut down the West Side Highway due to the concerns of the Northridge Sewage Treatment Plant. For those who are not familiar, this park sits, the Northridge Sewage Plant sits beneath the Riverbank State Park. It starts at 138th and ends at 145th. I'll show you some pictures of that so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So We Act filed a lawsuit forcing the Northridge Sewage Treatment Plant to address the operational fall. As you look at this picture here, these are smokestacks. The Northridge Sewage Treatment Plant processes 300,000 gallons a day of raw sewage. So just think about that, 300,000 200,000 gallons of raw sewage. It processes all the raw sewage from Manhattan and some of the Bronx. So that's a lot of raw sewage coming into the community that has to be treated and then cleaned and then sent out. Next slide. This is what the Northridge Sewage Treatment Plant looks like. And again, we started in 1988. WEAC consists of 25 staff members in both locations in New York City and Washington, D.C. But if you look at this plant, you say to yourself, okay, that's just the plant. But if you're not near it, you would not know that there's a state park sitting directly on top of that park, sewage treatment plant. So I just want you to get an idea of some of the environmental hazards that exist in Northern Manhattan. Next slide. Since 1986, the sewage treatment plant has been causing respiratory issues for West Harlem residents. You know, it says 125 million, but they definitely process 340,000 gallons during the wet weather. So if it's raining, it's processing even more raw sewage. And all of those toxins end up in the community, in the atmosphere. Thank you. Next slide. We also have the Manhattan transfer station that is now closed. But this facility also in Northern Manhattan was a 24-hour-a-day garage transfer station where garbage trucks were coming into the community, dumping waste, and they were being barged at that time, we're talking about 2005, to Staten Island when the Staten Island Fresh Killed landfill was open. The issue with it is 24 hours and trucks were idling. This came up way before New York City instituted its 3-minute idling law. So just imagine 24 hours a day, trucks are just coming in, just standing in line, waiting to dump it. This facility is now closed. It's been closed since 2005, but it is and was a polluting facility in Northern Manhattan. Next slide. When we talk about transportation, and I'm just bringing again some of the issues that take place in Northern Manhattan. The MTA, we're talking about buses. There are 7 depots in Manhattan alone, but 5 of them are located in Northern Manhattan. And I've listed them here so you can see what's been going on for the past 50 some odd years in Northern Manhattan. The Michael J. Quill Depot, it's located on 40th and 11th Avenue. That depot is due to be closed in January 2023 for repairs. But the next couple of ones that I'm going to mention are located in Northern Manhattan. The Tuskegee Airmen Depot is located on 100th Street and Lexington Avenue. The 126th Street Depot has been closed because they wanted to renovate it and they found out it was built on an African burial site. So they closed it permanently. The Mother Clara Hale Depot is located on 146th and Lenox Avenue. It is a LEED certified depot, and I'll get more into that a little bit later. The Amsterdam Depot is located on 129th and Amsterdam Avenue. You have the Manhattanville Depot, 133rd and 12th Avenue, and the Kingsbridge Depot. So again, 5 of these depots, where all these buses are going around the city, are coming into Northern Manhattan. And some of the buses are diesel electric buses, which exasperates asthma and other respiratory issues. So this is, again, we talk about the Northridge Sewage Treatment Plant. We talked about the Marine Transfer Station, and now 5 bus depots. So that's 3 entities that are in the community that are polluting facilities. Next slide, LJ. And lastly, a natural gas line. You may not know it, and I'll show it to you later in the slide. In Upper Manhattan, we have a natural gas line that's located about 132nd Street in the West Side Highway. So all of these facilities, you think, it says, okay, why? Why were they placed in Northern Manhattan? This is an example of environmental racism. They place these things on purpose in communities low income, and BIPOC communities. So it wasn't by accident. They didn't just decide, well, maybe we'll put one. They put all of these facilities that I mentioned into our community. Next slide. Our theory of change. So I've talked about what are the issues facing Northern Manhattan residents, but now I'm going to talk about our theory of change. How does WEACT do its work to get some of these issues addressed? And this is our theory of change. We're talking about inputs. You've met some of our staff members, LJ, Alex, Frank, myself, 21 in total, there's 6 in DC. So when we're putting this all together, you need people to do the work. You need people, you need materials, computers, all types of stuff like that to make a theory of change. But the key aspects of it is what we call outputs. What type of activities, products that we're going to give to the community to let them know what are the issues. And this is one of them. You're attending this new member orientation. This is an activity. We also have programs. We do letters. We do outreach. All of those are outputs, products to let the community know, here is the issue. Here's the issue we're presenting. We want you to help us work on it. Some of the short-term outcomes is knowledge. You're going to walk away with some knowledge about WEACT. Again, we're 34 years in the making. You're not going to learn everything about WEACT in 1 hour. But I hope to give you a base of which you can make a decision to say, hey, I'd like to work on this with WEACT. I'd like to work on this with WEACT. So we develop constituencies and organizational capacity. We also work with elected officials to bring it to light. So sometimes we'll go to Albany, sometimes we'll go to City Hall. We've even gone to DC with members to say, hey, here's the issue. We want you to work on it. So some of the intermediate outcomes is a change in policy. You know, WEACT doesn't want 5 bus depots in the community. We don't want a polluting marine transfer station. We don't want a polluting sewage treatment plant. We don't want any of that in our community. We want a healthy community where people can live and thrive. And a long-term goal is not just to change the policy, but to make sure it's enforceable. Passing legislation is one thing, but you got to be able to make sure it's tangible and you can enforce it. And the ultimate goal is always to build a healthy Northern Manhattan community. That is our end goal. And we do that with like my colleagues, LJ, who works on city policy. That's how we do our work. So this is our theory of change. We don't just wake up in the morning and decide, you know what, we're going to do this. There's a structure and a function of how we do our work. I'm going to stop there. Does anybody have any questions thus far of what they heard? You can put it in the chat and I'll take it from LJ. If anybody has any questions. And feel free to put them in the chat if you so desire. LJ, next slide. So some of the things that WEACT has worked on and or continue to work on, we call these our focus areas. WEACT has focused on clean air, climate justice, healthy homes, sustainable land use, affordable, equitable transit, open and green space, waste, pest and pesticides, toxic-free chemicals, food justice, and water justice. So those are the 10 things that we have worked on, and I'll show you later some of the things that we're working on that are tied to some of these focused areas. So just sit tight, you will get all the information because I'm going to connect these focus areas to work that we're doing here on the ground. Next slide. NYCHA, for those who may not be familiar with the city, NYCHA is New York City Housing Authority. It is the largest public housing authority in the country, not just New York City, the entire country. So WEACT works with NYCHA residents to address some of the issues they're facing. Next slide. Some of the issues that they face are mold, lead, and pests. Mold, lead, and pests are common problems inside buildings. And NYCHA New York City Housing Authority has not been doing regular maintenance to get rid of them. And mold, if you do not know, lead can lead to you getting very sick. So WEAC is working with its members, community members, and NYCHA to hold them accountable to make sure that they make the repairs that they need to make to keep people healthy. Next slide. Again, mold. It can cause long-term health problems, including respiratory issues like asthma and learning disabilities. NYCHA has been trying to address it, but they have not caught up to all the mold, and they've been neglecting these issues for years. It's been a health problem that our residents had brought to our attention, and this is the reason why we focus on healthy homes and NYCHA. Next slide. Indoor air quality facts. I want to make sure that everybody understands this. The air quality in and around buildings, especially as it relates to health and comfort of its occupants. We want to make sure that people know and understand that controlling the common indoor air pollutants that are there. The EPA reports 90% of your time is spent indoors, whether you're at work, you're at school, you're at places of worship, you're at the gym, you spend a majority of your time indoors, okay? The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, they don't regulate indoor air quality. And we talk about the outside influences, but indoor air pollutants are 2 to 4 times higher than the outdoor pollutants. Again, because remember, we're spending most of our time indoors. You know, some of you right now, whether you're at work or whatever, you're indoors, and that's 90% of the time. Next slide. Ventilation. Ventilation is key to making sure that you have proper air circulation in your house. Major gas appliances found in a home required to be vented outdoors except for gas stoves. Just if you could put it in the chat, I would like to know how many people on this call have a gas stove, and do they have what we called a venter, a hood range over it to vent out some of those. If you could put that in the chat, just want to get a sense of how many people have gas stoves. Oh, some people, okay, some people, and if you do not have a vent, I would suggest somehow trying to get a vent installed, because radon is being emanated from your gas stove, whether your stove is on or not. So right now, if your stove is off, it's still emitting those toxins into the air. And when you breathe that, it causes respiratory issues. So thank you for participating in that. There are no standards to ensure that the venting works or turns off when pollution levels are safe. You want to make sure that people, if you do get a hood installed, that it's properly installed by somebody licensed to do that. We've heard from some of our members that the fans are too noisy. And we just suggest that, yeah, it may be noisy, but it's saving your life. Whether it makes noise or not, it's pulling out all of those toxins that, whether you're, again, your stove is on or it's off, it's pulling all of that stuff out. Next slide. Lead. Lead can be found in water. Lead can be found in paint. Lead can be found in a lot of different sources. So I put this slide up here. And again, since you're attending this meeting, I'll send you a link. You can order a free lead test. Now, this is for people in Manhattan. So if you're not, in New York City, if you're not in New York City, you won't be able to get this free lead. So this is specifically for people in the boroughs. And I will send this link out. If you have more than one person in your building, each person would have to submit their own application to get one. So if you're in 2A and your neighbor says, I want to get one, you can't order 2 kits and then give your neighbor one. You have to order one for yourself, and they have to order one for themselves. So I will send this out, the link out to you if anybody's interested. I think it's important You know, we found 2 years ago in some schools up in Washington Heights, the kids, their water had to be shut off in the school, their drinking fountain, because it had high levels of lead in it. And that's what brought us to making sure that we're working on that. I'm going to take a quick pause again. And any questions thus far? Anything that people need some clarification on? Okay, I'll move on. LJ, next slide, please. I'm going to talk about some of the things that WEAC has worked on thus far. And remember, I mentioned that there are 5 bus depots in Northern Manhattan. WEAC worked on the Mother Clara Hale Depot when the MTA wanted to tear it down and rebuild it. So we got community members. And again, we talk about participating meaningfully in the sound creation of policies. We went to the community and said, hey, they're going to tear this depot down. What would you like to see this depot have? Do we want this to be the cleanest depot in the country? And members came out, and I'll show you a picture of that. The depot officially reopened in 2014. However, it was delayed because of Hurricane Sandy and getting materials there. So when Hurricane Sandy hit New York City, the bus depot was delayed in opening. Next slide. This is Mother Clara Hale. And I'm just going to briefly talk about Mother Clara Hale back in the early 80s was a regular community resident that took in young babies from their mothers who were addicted to crack. If you do not know, crack was big here in New York City and basically around the country. Crack took over the city. So Mother Clara Hale took in young infants on her own, didn't ask for any money, and providing that loving, sheltering environment that their parents could not provide. So that's why the depot at 146th Street is named after this incredible woman, Mother Clara Hale. Next slide. This is what the depot used to look like before it was renovated. As you can see in the background, that is Esplanade Gardens. The Mother Clara Hale Task Force and residents from Mother Clara Hale basically rallied together to make sure that all the demands were met from the community. Next slide. This is what the depot looks like now. And I was a part of this. This was a great community event. You can see in the background, that's the same picture of Esplanade Gardens. So community members came and they said, well, we want a depot. Oops, go to the next. We want a depot, but we want to see artwork. We want local people to create some artwork. We got that. This depot recycles its water. It has a green roof. Next slide. I want to show you another thing that's very important. You see these green panels here? These green panels, we made sure and we advocated for the panels pull in cool air to keep the depot cool during the summer months, but it rejects cold air. So the costs of heating and cooling the plant are reduced. These panels are beautiful. If anybody else want to take a trip, we could probably arrange a trip so you could see this green depot. It was one of WEAC's high points in our work that we do, and I was glad to be a part of it. Next slide. This is a picture when the depot was open. Now, you may not be able to see everybody, but in the back here, that's my colleague, Charles Calloway. He is the director of organizing. This is me. We all got on a bus. This is the former borough president, Gail Brewer. There are 2 members here from WEAC. So we all got on the bus and we got a tour inside the bus that took us throughout the whole depot. So that was really a really fun event to see the hard work pay off and the community be pleased with what they advocated for. WEAC was just a conduit. It was the WEAC members and community residents that made this all possible. Next slide. This is one of the electric buses that the MTA wants to switch to. It's going to take a while, but this is one of 10 electric, fully electric buses. And this depot runs out of the Michael J. Quill Depot. Just for a fun, quick fact, if you're ever lost on a New York City bus, just look for the decal. LJ, can you point to that decal that I'm right there that's above the 4950? That decal. So if you're ever lost, you lose your bag, and they say, well, what bus you're on? You can tell them every bus has the depot logo on it. And this right here is from Michael J. Quill. So just a little fun fact, if you ever lost something on New York City bus, you can tell them what bus you were on, the number and the depot that the bus came from. Next slide. The West Harlem Piers Park. Back in 1998, the West Harlem and the Economic Development Corporation wanted to put waterfront condos at the West Harlem Piers Park. And that's located on 125th Street and 12th Avenue. So if you go as far as west as you can go until you reach the water, We Act helped make sure that they were not going to build high-rise condos on that property. And we advocated to bring a park, which was created and finalized in 2008. It opened up in basically May of 2009 for members. Next slide, I'll show you some pictures. So if you haven't been there, this is what the West Harlem Piers Park looks like. It has a dock here. Boats can come and dock if they want. For those who like yoga and want to stretch, there's some patchy areas of grass. And as you can see right here on this bottom screen to the right, that is the West Side Highway that runs directly across. And in the far background, remember that picture of the north, the sewage treatment plant? This in the very back right there. So all of these things are connected to each other. So again, We Act advocates for clean infrastructure. I mean, I don't know about anybody on this call. I love parks. I think they're just what keeps the community together and glued. Everybody loves the park. So we advocated to make sure that they weren't going to be luxury condos, that we wanted to advocate for a park. Next slide. The Northern Manhattan Climate Action Plan. And again, I'll send everybody this link. Back in 2015, after Hurricane Sandy, We Act wanted to talk to community members about how do we plan for the next Hurricane Sandy. We already saw how it devastated Louisiana. So, but when it hit New York City, I mean, power was lost, trains weren't working. So we went through a 6-month process, again, with the community, asking them, what do they think we should be working on? And out of that meeting came some of the working groups that we're working on today. So we had civic engagement. We wanted people to be able to vote, go out and vote for sound policies and practices that they felt. Emergency preparedness. You know, if you're in New York City, when it rains, some of the train stations get flooded. What are we going to do about that infrastructure for the rivers and lakes and everything that's surrounding the city? Energy democracy, you know, installing solar panels. And I'll talk about that a little later. We have a working group on that. And then social hubs, spaces where people can get together and strategize and talk about how we combat the next climate event, because it's not a issue of when, you know, it's going to happen. We just have to be better prepared for it. Next slide. And if you want, I'll just pause this 1 second. You can take a picture of this and it'll take you to the action plan. You can see it for yourself. And then also after this meeting, I will email everyone so they can have a link to look at it as well. So if you're interested, you can take a picture of it. It will lead you right to the Northern Manhattan Action Climate Plan. Next slide. Last year, We Act introduced and passed the gas ban bill, Intro 2317. This bill states that starting in 2023, buildings under 7 stories cannot have a gas hookup. And I'm gonna repeat that again, starting in 2023, it may be pushed back a little more, but buildings under 7 floors cannot have a gas hookup. So that means they have to go electric. And gas, we know, is not a sustainable way to make sure we heat and cool our buildings. It's just not sustainable. So buildings over 7 stories have until 2027 to get it done. So we thank our partners at the Gas Free New York City Coalition, New York Communities for Change, NYPIRG, We Act, and Food and Water Watch. So we passed this last year, December 7th, 2021. So again, 2023 for buildings under 7 stories, and then 2027 for buildings over, there's no gas hookups. So we were very proud to pass that legislation. Next slide. I'm gonna stop because I've been talking and you've been listening. I'll let my colleague LJ take over from here. LJ?
Yeah, I can jump in here and chat a little bit about electric school bus work. One thing that we like to highlight about the work that we do electric school buses is it shows that, you know, kind of as a policy item that we've been working on at We Act, it's one of the few, but there are others, issues that we work on that kind of translate policy at the city, state, and federal level. So we're involved in, particularly me, I'm involved in coalitions at all 3 levels. So at the city level, we have the New York City Clean Bus Coalition. And what we did there is that we worked together with other advocates to pass what was Intro 455. And basically it was that mandates New York City school buses be electric by 2035. This was a huge win. And the reason why electric school buses, you might think, is like, why is that a big issue or a big deal, or how is that an environmental justice issue? Very similar to the transit buses. If you want, those buses have to park somewhere and they have to be somewhere. And where do you think they put those depots? And where do you think where those kind of dirty diesel school buses run, and, all throughout different neighborhoods, but the depots themselves, where all of it's concentrated, are throughout the city, but they're definitely in environmental justice communities of color and low-income communities. I think the highest concentration is in East New York, where they have multiple school bus details. Think about that every single morning, all of those buses starting, that dirty diesel, all the fumes that come out of those buses. And not only is it an issue with the outdoor air quality, but inside the bus as well, causes a lot of respiratory problems, especially for kids who have developing lungs and a certain age. So, kind of the initiative is to switch over from these dirty diesel school buses to electric school buses. And so we were able to get this law passed. And right now what we are doing is we are in the implementation process, right? So I think Bailey mentioned this earlier, just because you pass legislation, the work does not stop. And our policy team doesn't stop working, because we have to implement these laws. We have to make sure that we are actually making sure that the bus contractors in the city are doing their due diligence to make sure that the buses are transferring. And then we're also working at the state level when it comes to money to provide for this transition. And there is actually a state law now as well that mandates school buses go electric by 2035 as well, statewide. So not only were the state inspired by what we did in New York City, is now a state law as well. And there's some money behind that, but the money we're not going to be able to get, because it's until the November, when the Bond Act has money to transition to electric school buses. And if people vote yes on the Bond Act, then it will provide money for more electric school buses. And at the federal level, we're part of the Alliance for Electric School Buses, which is a national organization, and we're working with federal policymakers as well as the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, when it comes to their clean school bus program, which is a lot of money given, I think over $5 billion given to this program, this newly formed program, to switch from dirty diesel buses to electric school buses. There's also money for other types of buses that we call here at WEACT false solution buses. They're still fossil fuel buses, for instance, propane buses. So we have been working and advocating really hard to make sure that we push for the electric school bus and pot of money there. And we've been working with the EPA to make sure that there's equitable implementation in this grant program, and making sure that the communities that need them the most get them first. And that's kind of the work that we've been doing that kind of goes through city, state, and federal level.
Thank you, LJ. So for those on this call, understand it takes a whole lot of work. It takes community members, it takes staff, it takes elected officials pushing the envelope going forward to say, hey, this is what we want. Not only we demand it, we will come to Albany to your offices, we'll go to City Hall and rally. We're going to do this to bring awareness, because it's not just for Northern Manhattan. Some of these benefits go out to the city and go out to the state level. So it takes a lot. And as LJ pointed out, just because you have a law, you got to have somebody to enforce it. And we have to make sure it has the teeth behind it to say, hey, and I'm just going to use somebody right there. Heather, I'm not just picking on you, but I'm just saying, if Heather doesn't do what she needs to do, we're going to bring some pain. We're going to bring this issue to the forefront to make sure Heather does what Heather needs to do to make sure we're building a healthy community. So I just want to just reiterate that. Next slide. So WEACT, since the late last year, we have a out of gas educational pilot. So what we're doing is we're swapping out a gas stove for induction stoves and installing heat pumps. So we're only doing a small pilot because we have to see what are the benefits, the access, what is the cost. We have to educate our members about it. So it's a pilot of just 40, 20 in New York City, 20 in Buffalo. And so we've installed these induction stoves to show people you don't need a gas stove and how much better it is for the environment indoors. So again, gas stoves emanate radon, which is on regardless whether you're using your stove or not. And induction stoves won't do that. So what we're going to do is measure what was like when Bailey had a gas stove, and then measure the matter in the air in the apartment. What is it like after the induction stove? So that is the out of gas pilot project. And again, any new construction in New York City in 2023, if it's under 7 stories, can't have a gas hookup. And then after, if it's 7 stories or more, 2027. So we're inching towards a better environment, out with gas, in with electric. But of course, it takes time, it takes money, and it takes infrastructure. Next slide. We have our 2020 policy agenda. Again, don't worry about it, but we do have our city, state, and policy agenda that you can look at. I'll send a link out to everybody, and it gives you an idea of all the things we're working on the city level, on the state level, and on the federal level. So after this call, I'll get everybody's email. I'll send everybody an email, and it'll have all the links that we spoke about thus far. Next slide. Now let's talk about how you can get involved. And I'll start with some of the working groups that we have. We're now up to 7 working groups. Each of them is focusing on something different, but it's all relevant to not only environment, whether it's the indoor, outdoor environment, or your own body. So let's talk about the Beauty Inside Out working group. They're working on making community more aware of informed choices about beauty products. And we think beauty products, we don't just include men. We're talking about shampoos. You know, men use shampoo, men use body wash, but we're talking about specifically makeup, nail polish, eyeliner, blush, foundation. All of these have chemicals in them. So we want to have this working group to educate people to phase out some of these toxics that are in products that women and men use on a regular basis and may not know this toxic. So the Beauty Inside Out working group meets the 3rd Thursday of Wednesday. You don't need any special training. I can send you the information so you can have it, and you can, if you're interested in working at it. So their next meeting is going to be September 21st at 6:30. And again, I'll send the information. Sophia Huda, my colleague, is in charge of that working group. Next slide. Civic engagement. This is one of the things, this working group came out of the Northern Manhattan Climate Action Plan. We want people to be civically engaged on policies that affect them. So this year, of course, you know, in November, we have an upcoming governor election in New York State. So the civic engagement not only just educates, but it gets people signed up if they're not a voter, gets them involved. Earlier this year, we had a series of candidates forums where we brought the candidates to the We Act membership. Even though it was via Zoom, they got to meet, they got to ask questions, talk about some of the issues that they're concerned about. So We Act is the conduit from our membership to the elected officials to say, hey, these are the issues that we want to work on. So the Civic Engagement Group meets the first Tuesday of every month. So the next meeting will be Tuesday, September 6th at 6 p.m. My colleague Pamela at We Act is her email. Next slide. The Climate Justice Working Group is focusing on policies and projects that will rapidly, safely, and equitably end our reliance on polluting fossil fuels. Remember, we talked about the gas stove. That's just one of the many things. The Climate Justice Working Group is working on emergency preparedness as well. Again, preparing and being ready for that next storm that potentially will hit New York City. Okay, they want to make sure that the ideas of the environmental justice movement are leading to the transition to a greener economy for not just Northern Manhattan, our base, but beyond. So they meet on Tuesday, September 20th at 6 p.m. And my colleague Annie is chairing that working group. Next slide.
I want to add to the Climate Justice Working Group because I help Annie with that one. We are also be working on food and waste justice as part of that portfolio as well. So if you're interested in composting and any sort of food justice and waste mitigation and universal curbside organics pickup, this will be the group is for you as well. Thanks, man. I just want to get that quick plug in there.
Thank you so much. And I want everybody, and I'm going to keep saying it. So you go back for a second, LJ. I just want to just make sure everybody understands that part of the working group, composting, because members wanted it. Members asked us, hey, what are we doing about waste? Think about every time Northern Manhattan or just New York City residents throw out garbage. That garbage has got to go somewhere. Whether we barge it, you know, we don't burn it anymore, whether we barge it to another state, but members came up with that idea. So members wanted it, we're going to work on it. And that's the way We Act works, taking the ideas from our membership and crafting it into legislation that benefits the entire city. Next slide. The Energy Workforce Working Group. The workforce aims to advocate for an equitable, clean transition for communities, especially those disproportionately burdened by environmental hazards. But the key here is this working group is working on green infrastructure and the access to green jobs. We Act has a worker training program where we train, no matter where you live in the city, you can get an OSHA card with us for free. This is normally a $400 training. We Act is training members to do that. We also train members on solar panel installation. And it goes one step further than that. Not just solar panel installation, we would connect them to jobs. So even if you're scared of heights and you don't want to put solar, you could be a person that just talks to people about getting their building. You can do the assessment part of it. All of this is we're training our members for free. We don't ask anything, just come, take the training, you get your certificates. So that group meets September 7th, which is the first Wednesday of September at 6 o'clock. My colleague Charles heads that working group. Next slide. We have our Healthy Homes Working Group. The Healthy Homes Working Group is working on the threats that are indoors in your apartments, working on lead, indoor allergens. And remember, I spoke about radon. If you have a gas stove and you're not using it right now, it's emanating radon, whether you know it or not. So we want to make sure that we educate our members about making sure their indoor environment is just as healthy as the outdoor environment. Charles also heads that working group. That's the second Tuesday of the month. So that meeting will be September 13th. Next slide. Out of the Healthy Homes Working Group, we split up NYCHA. Again, New York City Housing Authority, because they have a separate set of issues that they're working on. Mold, asbestos, leaky roofs, broken doors, bad boilers, elevators that don't work. So it's a lot for that working group that they're handling. So we split it up. So they meet the last Tuesday of the month, and they will be meeting on next week, which is Tuesday the 30th at 6:30. Charles will not be heading that group. Correct me if I'm wrong, LJ, is it Jaron running that group?
It's actually going to be the other way around. So the Healthy Homes is going to be led by Jaron, and the NYCHA's working group is going to continue with Charles. And we actually just had our meeting yesterday.
Okay, so then I'll update this then. So pardon me, everyone, for giving you the little switcheroo there. So Jaron handles Healthy Homes, and Charles will stay with NYCHA. Next slide. This is the Transportation Working Group, which is being formulated now. That's why it says the groups meet. It's going to be to be determined. The goal of the working group is to ensure equitable, clean, safe, and reliable forms of transportation for the riding public, regardless of age, income, gender, and ability. So I'm going to be heading that working group up. And this working group is being resurrected. When I first came to WEAC in 2011, I was WEAC's transit organizer because I really love transit. It's how we get around. It's, you know, without transit, some other cities don't have 24-hour transit service. New York City is blessed to have it. So that is going to be formulated. So look out for information on the transit working group. Next slide. The WEAC Planning Committee is in fact a working group, but there's a clear distinction. So I want to make sure everybody's clear. The WEAC Planning Committee is the liaison between members and upper management, our executive staff. So they have to be voted in. All the other working groups that I mentioned, you can just become a WEAC member, join the group. The WEAC Planning Committee, you have to be voted on. So the members that came on in July were voted in by the membership. The WEAC, they work with the WEAC executive staff. They endorse policies and campaigns. And they're the liaison. So when community members say, hey, Bailey, why aren't they working on this? The WEAC Planning Committee, which I chair, we discuss that. And we say to management, hey, people are talking about this. Is there any way we can work on that? We also plan the annual membership meeting with staff, and we also plan the monthly membership meeting. WEAC has monthly membership meetings the second Saturday of every month, and our next meeting will be the first meeting that we've had since the beginning of the pandemic. So the September 10th meeting will be in person. We just going to finalize the location, so look out for that information. We would just love to see people and interact like we were doing before the pandemic. Next slide. And I'm going to close on our worker training program. Again, you can get your OSHA 30, your SST, solar panel installation, and that's for free. Long as you're 18 years of age or older, you have a valid ID and a social security card, you can take the training for free. No questions asked. For those who may have been recently released, they've been incarcerated, that's not our concern. We're going to give you this training for free. Because again, we want to build this economy of not only being trained in doing this work, but being able to access jobs. We want to build a healthier community. Next slide. So here it is, our monthly membership meeting, Saturday, September 10th. The location to be determined. This is an upcoming event. And we meet again the second Saturday of every month. The topics for this one will be the Bond Act, and it'll also be the recently passed Inflation Reduction Act. So again, part of the work that we do, we have to educate members about what's going on. And you may not be a political person, but it has value, and it also has a direct impact to our members. So we always want to make sure that our members are trained and understand the policies that have been enacted in their community and around the country. Next slide. Trendy or toxic? Remember I spoke about the Beauty Inside Out working group? So there is going to be a panel discussion and educational session on September 13th at 7 p.m. that if anybody's interested, and they're going to go into not only just with community members, but advocates and a discussion panel to talk about fashion sustainability, beauty products, and the impact that it has on our bodies. Okay, remember, when you put on makeup, nail polish, all of that is going into your body, regardless. Even if you wipe it off, somehow some of those particles get into your body. So that is a good, if anybody's interested in that, they can attend that. Next slide. If you have anybody that wants to attend, I do the new members orientation quarterly. So the next one is going to be December 14th at 6:30. We'll have more information as it develops as we go on. But again, this is 34 years in the making. I tried to make it as concise as possible. We try to educate our members, and we also try to get them involved to develop these processes and these policies and these practices with us. Next slide. I'm just going to put my contact information there. I already put it in the chat. I'll put it again. You can reach me better at the 540 number. And I think that is it. Is there one more slide? LJ? Yes. So we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, and we are on Instagram. You can look for that. So if you had to leave early, this is being recorded, and we will put it on our YouTube, Facebook, so you can have it and refer back to it just in case you missed something. I'm going to stop because I've been talking. I'm just going to open up the floor. If anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, something that we missed, please tell me. I'm looking at the screen, so I'll start and I'll go as I see it. Megan, thank you for attending. I know it was a lot. It's hard to pack 34 years into 1 hour. So do you have any thoughts, comments, anything you would like to?
Everything was great. You were very clear, and you taught me a lot more about environmental racism. Being a white person, it's not always easy for me to see everything. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, they put all of these polluting facilities in communities of color. They just dump them. And one thing I forgot to mention also too, WEAC is working on something called Cumulative Impact. It's been passed in in New Jersey. So that is where if Exxon wanted to put a plant in Northern Manhattan, they would have to go through a review process and prove that they're not going to be continually to harm the community. And if they can't prove that they're not, then they won't get a license to open up a facility. So we're hoping to get that passed. And this is across the country. We're trying to get that passed. So I just want to bring that up. Tola, did I say it, Tova? Did I say it right? I want to make sure.
Yeah, it's Tova.
Okay, thank you.
I don't really have any questions, but I just wanted to say thank you so much. This is really interesting. And yeah, I just moved here from Colorado, where I was doing environmental justice work, and so I'm excited to get involved here as well.
Thank you so much. And again, for everybody still on the call, I'm going to wrap up. I just want to make sure that you get an opportunity to ask us questions. This work, as we continue, we just want to make sure that people are aware of what's going on and that they participate in somehow. We act as a buffet. If you heard anything tonight, we act as a buffet. You may not like the chicken, you may be a salad person, you may be a fish person, but there's something in WEAC that you can connect to and be involved with. I want to thank my colleague LJ and of course Alex and Frank for helping me out here. We're a great organization. I'm not saying as a plug, we're doing good work on the ground. You know, we're not sitting in some office talking to people. We're hitting the streets and bringing the relevant issues to their attention, and they're bringing those relevant issues to our attentions. Rihanna, do you have any questions, comments, concerns?
No questions, but thank you again. And I also just moved here from Louisiana, where there's a lot of climate justice work to be done. So I'm excited to be involved.
Cancer Alley's right there. So we can talk about that. There's a lot of stuff. Milo, do you have any thoughts, comments? Oh, I just saw, let me just go back. I just saw, okay, I saw you, Colette. Everybody will get the link. Colette, if you look into the chat, the link is there, but I'll send it. Somebody said, can people join meetings without having been done meeting? Yes, the answer is yes. I'm not pushing membership because it's $25 and it's good for 1 calendar year. So if you signed up today, you're good until August 24th, 2023. It's not like any of that money pays for our salaries. So it's $25. It's not a museum membership. So no, if you want to attend, I'm not pushing that. We just want to make sure that if people are interested, they do donate. So that is it. So to answer that question, if you want to attend the new member orientation again, or if you want to attend any working groups, you do not have to be, we would like you to, but it's not mandatory. Kia, good evening. I'm going to wrap up because I know people have been on listening to me for a while. So Kia, do you have any comments, thoughts, concerns?
No, I thought this was a really great presentation.
Okay.
So thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. I think it's echoing. Let me take my video off. Diana. Why is my thing echoing?
I had asked the question about whether they could join without doing the orientation. I meant more about having to do the new member orientation. So, it seems like the next orientation isn't until December, but if someone wanted to join a meeting or it's not specifically for me, but maybe I can think of other people that might be interested in joining in some of the working groups coming up, but I don't know if they have to wait until December to do an orientation first and then join a working group, or if they can join a working group without having done the orientation. That was my question. Otherwise, thank you. This has been really helpful.
Understood. Usually the process is some people on this call already became a member. So we do the orientation because some people sign up. I had someone when I did the orientation in April, she signed up in February. She didn't even remember she signed up. She didn't even know she was a WEAC member. So I called her and said, hey, you're a WEAC member. We're doing this orientation. You can learn about orientation. She had forgotten. So this is just a way of getting people to know what WEAC is all about. So once I send you the email with the links, if people want to attend working groups or anything, information, they can do that. And then if they become a member, or even if they don't, they can still attend a new member orientation because we want people to know what we're doing. That's the key for the new member orientation, getting people aware of WEAC. Again, we're small, about 24, 25 people. We've been in existence for 34 years, but we want to make sure that visibility is broadening out of Northern Manhattan into the state and also our federal policy stuff. Colette, I saw your question and I will email you the link again if you didn't get it from the chat so you can become a member. Do you have any questions? She was still with us. I guess not. Haley, good evening. Do you have any questions? Oh, go ahead, Colette, sorry.
Okay, yes, I don't have a question right now. I think I'll hold my questions. I'm a professor and I was thinking that maybe we could, I don't know, if we could have one of your members come and speak about WEAC as a guest lecturer. I don't know, but we can talk about that off the air.
Okay, sounds good. And Frank is on the call too. You're in New York City, and Frank is on the call. Frank's my colleague. That conversation would we have to have, and then we could definitely work it out. But of course, it would have to go through Frank.
Okay.
But thank you for that. And the link, if you saw it in the chat, if you want to become a member, the link is in the chat.
I actually joined in December.
Of last year?
Yes.
Okay, so it might be, it's coming to a close then. Okay, no problem. Well, thank you anyway for being a WEAC member. Haley?
Thanks.
Hi, no questions. This was a fabulous presentation. Thank you so much. Joined the Columbia Climate School in March, so working in the Manhattanville area and excited to get involved in the community. And I think this is going to be a great way to do that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Jessamine, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Thanks, Bailey, for all the information that you provided today. I think the only, do I have a question? Oh, sure. So I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about the IRA. So in that in-person meeting that you guys are having in September, I think.
Yes.
But I'm wondering if there's also like a working group. It might be energy justice or climate justice, but I'm wondering if there's a working group that deals with some aspects of like the New York's Community Leadership and Climate Protection Act, the CLCPA, or if there's any work around that WEAC partakes in.
That would be the Climate Justice Working Group. And those conversations, we'll talk about state work coming up as the due session starts. So that would be the place to dive a little bit more into the CLCPA.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, LJ. And Jessamine, I will send you the link. I don't know if they put it in, we have a thing in our system where we schedule appointments. And the membership meeting will be in person, but I think the Climate Justice Working Group will still be via Zoom until we can work out all of the kinks. So I can send you that information and make sure you get everything. Rachel, are you still with us? I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak.
I am, yeah, thank you so much. This was such an awesome presentation. I joined as a member, I think, a couple months ago, but I think I missed like the last call. So I already joined the Climate Justice Working Group and I attended for the first time in the last session, which was awesome. Yeah, so I'm excited to get more involved.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And again, I'm gonna put my contact information in the chat. We're trying to refine what we're doing here. So if you have some thoughts, comments, feel free. I don't bite, I take it as is. If there's something that we're not providing, we have to try to make sure that we try to provide it for you. So I'll put my email in the chat again and my phone number. Feel free to reach out. You may not think about it now. You may go to bed and, Friday afternoon, it's like, oh, I should have asked Bailey that. You have my email. So I'm going to give you back your evening. Staff, please stay on. Everybody, I just want you to have a great weekend. Whatever you said you're going to do, make sure you take care of yourself. You are no good to your partners, your friends and family, unless you take care of yourself. You are the number one job. So make sure that you do something for yourself this weekend. I don't even care if it's even getting yourself an ice cream cone. Do it. You got to treat yourself. This work is a lot. It takes a lot. And I'm just proud to be doing it. So thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Tomorrow morning, you'll see the email from me with all the links and the contact information for all the working groups. So thank you so much. Thank you for spending your Wednesday with me. Take care of yourselves and each other.